Look now at this 2D detailing and how we can change and add to it with some different types of construction or material systems. So we've extended this down from a concrete raft slab to be a suspended timber frame floor, or a traditional framed floor, we could call it. And we need to change the wall system here. Instead of being brick veneer the whole way up, we're also going to make this an autoclave aerated concrete or cement system. So I will do this all the way from the brick base all the way up. I can move this for now or shrink this for now if this is confusing in any way. So we still have our timber frame wall. This looks a little bit strange because I had to chop it before to move it down. So I'll extend this back up. So we've still got our wall just as we had before. The difference is we're going to have the hebel on the outside. So I'm going to take a copy because it's the same product that we can use for the wall and for the floor. Now I could add it directly to the outside of the frame, but it wouldn't create a very good system. Partly that would require the stud wall to be at the right spacing to allow for the frame to be fixed to, but it also wouldn't provide enough insulation. This sarking also works best if there is an air gap on the outside of the sarking. So we're going to add battens on the outside of this frame. Now when we're adding battens, we could either have battens in a vertical or a horizontal orientation. My preference is generally to use battens vertically, which allows moisture to be able to be extracted from the building better than if it's horizontal. When it's horizontal, of course, the battens are blocking the sarking all the way down. So if we can do a vertical, the batten on the outside, that tends to work better. So I'm going to grab this stud, move a copy across. Now, of course, in reality, we have this sarking that's against the frame. Try to grab this in a different spot. So the sarking's not very thick. The sarking's less than 1 millimeter thick, generally speaking. And the batten, of course, fixes directly to the frame as well. But instead of just having it squished, what we will tend to do when we're doing detailing is leave small gaps. And by leaving these small gaps, we're able to better see or better understand what it is we're trying to represent. So in this case, the batten will run all the way down. Now I can choose where this wants to stop, but at the moment I'll make this run all the way down to the bearer. We also don't want the batten to necessarily be 90 millimeters. So typically this could be 35 millimeters or 45 millimeters. Now again, it doesn't really matter how I represent this. So I could measure this 45 from the outside of my stud, or I could measure this 45 from the inside or outside of the batten. Typically I'll use a batten that's 35 by 45 or something like that. So I might be using, it's hard, at least in my local area, to be able to buy battens in this size. So typically when I'm trying to do this, if I was to be building or if I was to be very heavily specifying or annotating how this was to be done, I might be specifying a 90 by 35 batten. So wherever the panels join, I might have a 90 mil batten, so it's wide enough that it can be easily fixed to. And then if I need intermediate spacing for the support of the cladding panel, that might be a 90 by 35 stud or piece of timber that's ripped in half, so it becomes a 45 by 35 batten. So typically that's what it would be. That's how I'd annotate it. So I'd call it a 45 by 35 batten at whatever centers or spacing I need that to be. So if that's 600 centers, 450, 400, whatever suits the way that I'm doing this panel. Typically I'm going to leave a small gap at the bottom In this case, I don't need to have a mortar joint between the brick and the Hebel panel, and so the small gap that I might have underneath is acting as. And I could, if it was necessary, have flashing, hard capping, might be another way of saying that, which covers the edge of the brick, goes back behind the batten, and goes up this wall. Normally that's going to be going up 150 millimeters, in which case I might have the sarking stopping over the top of the capping, and that means I've got a nicer, neater finish because it's a folded, maybe color bond capping instead of sarking or a damp-proof course that's running outside that relationship. Now finally, I could say I don't really like the relationship in which the wall, the brick wall, meets the Hebel. So I could fix this in a couple of different ways. I could use a larger batten in order to push the Hebel all the way out so it lines up with the outside of the brick. Or I could potentially just move all of this information back across. So I could be pushing this brick wall back in alignment with the Hebel. Or of course, another way of saying that would be building or taking the bearer further out in relationship to the wall. Because instead of needing the 50mm cavity that I had before, I'm creating this just with my 35mm batten. Now push this back into place. And now, very quickly, we've changed this from a brick veneer wall to a Hebel clad wall.